public comments? Come on up. If I can get you to give your name for the minute taker.
Yes, I'm Kelly Plaza. I have a student at Carpenter School also. I'm back tonight for the same reason we're discussing. I too went to Roosevelt in Washington and years ago when we had no air conditioning and we sweat and so forth. So I've been there. I just feel like a couple of comments were made tonight that concern me a little. One, the roles, goals, and controls workshop. I agree that we should all come and say our piece. I really feel like the public should be heard. But I'm concerned at Carpenter is the smallest school, and a bunch of the population is in schools that are already air conditioned. In the group of the whole, we're always the smallest, and we're always going to be the smallest voice. Sorry, I'm losing my voice also. It is a little upsetting to think that everyone who has air conditioning and is in a bigger school than we are is going to play that big of a part in this decision. I mean, I know that if my kids were at Roosevelt, there'd be a heck of a lot bigger group here. And I do represent a group of parents, and if we need to pack the house, I'm going to call everybody on my list. I have 100 families that want to, that want to come to the meeting. But I know there's a lot more families at Roosevelt, a lot more at Washington, So I guess I just want to bring that up now to express that concern. I also was a little concerned in hearing that there's no short-term solution again. After the architects came and did their recommendation, I thought the goal was to come up with a long-term solution and maybe a short-term one as the kids are going back to school, and like we talked about Wednesday, it's starting to get hot again. I have a 6-year-old who told me last night, I'd like to empty my piggy bank, Mom. Can I help with this, And I said, no, Sarah, it's too much. It's a big project. And these kids don't understand. They're scared to go and be hot. And it's very upsetting as a parent to go and, drop her off today. And she said, well, what if it gets too hot in the building, Mom? Like, what do I do? What do you say to her? She cried going to school this morning because she was worried about that. And it kills me to leave her there and say, well, they're going to do the best they can, do the best you can. I feel like that's, in the equity of things, with all the schools, it's just not right for these kids to have to suffer when the others aren't. So part of the school budget is to pay for the operation of all these buildings. The air is running at those schools, and we're paying for the electricity for those schools, and yet our schools are sitting there sweating and hoping that the kids don't pass out from the heat just under 110 degrees. So I want to express that concern as well. And I guess my question now is, I plan to come to this budget meeting a month from now and consider what we could do to propose putting this on the budget. I haven't heard one mention of a dollar figure, what this is going to cost. How long is it going to take for us to come to a point where we can at least propose this into a budget when we don't even know what the cost is for this facility improvement that we keep talking about? I don't know how much further that is down the line, but I feel like now years are going to go by in the budget. We don't even have a number to put up. I mean, do we have a thought on how we're going to move forward there? We talked about making change. We're in the end of August. We haven't even talked about a number. This year is gone. This educational adequacy specifications, we're talking to kids in May and June of this year. So a whole other year has gone by. We have to draft over a report. It feels like this is kind of getting pushed out even further. And the reason we've been coming to these meetings, a group of us, every week or every couple weeks, is to keep this in the present, to make sure that this doesn't get, and I understand there's administration around everything, and I'm not talking about throwing money, at something immediately without thinking, but I guess I stand asking the question, like, how long is this gonna, what's our next goal, what's our next step? Because I waited all summer to come to this meeting and hear about this recommendation, and while it's great that they assess, the facilities, they know what we're working with, there's no proposal for, anything to change as of today. So I posed the question, I don't know if there's an answer, but I feel frustrated, that this is, and I've only been doing this for a year because my kid is a kindergartner, but I've been talking to parents who've been coming to these meetings, over a period of years, and this is the same pattern that we keep repeating over and over again. We're going to work on it next year, we're going to work on it next year, and now years go by with no change. So I don't know if there's anything we can do about it, but and maybe I don't get an answer tonight, but I'll keep coming back. I don't, I want to do my part. My kid wants to empty your piggy bank. Tell us what to do, but I feel like we need to get something done. The kids aren't learning. It's too hot. So thank you.
Appreciate it. Dr. Becker, I don't know if you want to say anything about the expected time frame of working on the master plan and kind of how that relates, or
well,
we have defer to our architects.
Well, we have a couple of ladies. Feel free to chime in. Back back on the July, because I too wanted to make sure that we were approaching this piece correctly, and as I look back on the July 11 minutes, we did tell Mr. Torres, who was there that night, that once the facility master plan was presented, the board would then begin prioritizing the options. That's been this whole process all along. Make no mistake about that. That's why we've hired architects to come in to design a master plan. We certainly understand we have an equity issue out there. I can tell you from my years of service, we always have equity issues somewhere along the line. When they're near and dear to you and you have children in certain places that are not getting certain things, I certainly understand that. My job as superintendent is to look at the whole picture. And because of that, part of that training with the board is to help the board set the goal. It's not my decision whether those buildings get air conditioning. It is this board's decision. They make that. My job is to help the board make an educated decision, as well as the architects.
Absolutely.
Part of the reason for the September 12th meeting is to help the board be able to define how we set those goals. And that's a 3-hour process that evening. It's going to be a long evening, but that will help the board be able to do that. And that decision has to be made. If the board up and decides we want to air condition, field and carpenter, then that's their choice. Then we go to the funding piece. And then that's when the community really gets involved. And then the community will decide that piece. The board can certainly put it out there, but it will be the community ultimately that we decide.
Absolutely, and I'd like to reiterate what you're saying with the rules, goals, and controls. Ultimately, as we work through these different priorities that come to light and we bring them to the board will decide on these priorities based on these facility goals that are determined. And you will ultimately have the deciding factor, which will then, as Dr. Bender said, we'll have to figure out how we're going to pay for these projects. To kind of highlight there is a facility master plan timeline that was included with the agenda tonight. The Rules, Goals, and Controls workshop is held on September 12th. We are planning by the end of next month to start determining these facility priorities with you with respect to the assessments that we have currently. So these priorities will start to come to light and we'll start to put them through fruition. And then once we really determine these goals, we can start working on things from there. But to only look at 4 buildings at this time and determine priorities across the whole district when we have more assessments in the second part of the facility master plan, it would be short-sighted, so to speak, to give our absolute priority number 1 is this when we might come to light on another subject at a different school after our assessments for those schools that we also need to think of in concert with the entire facility master plan. So while we understand, the hardships and the issues that are going on with these schools, we want to address it in the full scheme of things and not put a Band-Aid approach with a large dollar amount on now and then come to light to say maybe our facility isn't adequate enough as it is. Is this school worth keeping? Is that a possibility? So as we really started to look at these spaces, look at what not only the square footage is, but what these schools have and what they actually need in comparison to that, what does that mean in the whole grand scheme of things as, as well as the different systems that need to be upgraded?
If I can make one addition to it and clarify, we didn't make any recommendations tonight. I mean, I want to be really clear that we're not here making recommendations, and it goes to exactly what Dr. Bender said. We're not in a position to make a recommendation to you because we don't know where your head's at. And so after the rules, goals, and controls, you're going to say, we want these to be priorities, we need a recommendation for this, and that. And what we like to do at the rules, goals, controls is it defines the parameters in which we work. We wouldn't want to bring you a recommendation that doesn't meet your goals. If we came tonight and presented something, it's premature. You might go, well, that doesn't make any sense. We want to do this first, or we want to do that. Now, we have heard the district too on these issues of Fields and Carpenter related to the air conditioning and the boiler. But it's, again, not our position, as Dr. Bender pointed out, it's the board's position to take on those. And it's their direction to put us in a position to make those recommendations. At this point, we're just gathering enough information to give you adequate recommendations.
Thank you. Other public comments? Come on up. Give
Hello, everybody.
your name for the
I'm
minute
Mary.
taker.
Pardon me?
I said if you give your name for the minute taker.
My name is Mary Cunningham. I have a son at Carpenter. This is new for me. I'm a little nervous, so bear with me.
We're harmless.
Okay. I moved to Park Ridge 2 years ago. I live at 217 North Hamlin. And with just one son, I was very concerned where he would go to school. My realtor assured me that Carpenter was a wonderful school. He went to kindergarten there. Dr. Cannell's done a fantastic job. I love that school, even in my limited experience. I was very dismayed, however, when I got the letter about the heat policy. Okay, it's very hot, they can't have school, it's dangerous, I understand that. I get that part. Air conditioners, thank you for enlightening us. I didn't realize that that would tax the system. I didn't see anything in that document that addressed the gap in learning that's going to occur when the children aren't in school. There's no plan for the days that they'll miss. Why is he being penalized? Why is he going to lose those days? Well, Roosevelt goes on, Washington goes on. Those kids are just going to move right along. But not my son, not anybody at Field. Why? Why is there no plan for further education on those days? I understand there's probably nowhere to put them. That there's, no, this is such an act of God, how can you prepare for something like this? But if you're going to do this kind of plan, don't you think you should prepare something for those days? Are you going to tack days onto the end of the year to make up for those lost days?